a story once about a monk who visited Times Square. Times Square is, of course, the brightest part of New York City, with dozens and dozens of brightly lit screens all around. The monk's tour guide noticed that at first, the monk looked perplexed as he watched all the screens flickering and changing, but then he started to smile. And when the guide asked why the monk was smiling, he said, "They're trying to take my mind." Now, I've only been to Times Square once, but a lot of today's social media platforms are basically like Times Square in our pockets. We don't have to be monks to realize that these platforms are designed to discourage focus and to promote mindless scrolling. The people powering this technology seem to believe that they'll get us to spend more time on our devices by overwhelming us with options rather than by encouraging a more focused use. And at least for me, especially with YouTube, they are right. Or at least they were, until I decided to make a change.
Free your mind.
When I pull up YouTube on my computer today, here's what I see. My homepage is completely blank except for the search bar up top, and that's on purpose. I started using a plugin for Safari called UnTrap, which lets me dramatically simplify the way YouTube appears in my web browser. And no, this isn't a paid ad from UnTrap, I just genuinely love the way it's changed my relationship with YouTube. But UnTrap, if you're watching and you're interested in sending a little bit of money our way, you're certainly welcome to do so. I started using it because I noticed that a lot of the time, whenever I felt like procrastinating or when my brain started to go on the mindless hunt for amusement, I would do things like go to YouTube and just refresh the home screen multiple times. I didn't have a particular goal in mind. I was just flinging myself into the ocean of content and seeing where it carried me. In tech spaces, this sort of design is often compared to slot machines. Apps that have you pull down from the top of the page to refresh or even having you do the same motion you would do at the casino. The human brain can get addicted to the variable reward schedule that both gambling and doomscrolling involve. Each time we pull the lever or press the button, we might get something amazing, but we might not, and we never know for sure when it's going to happen again. But what I love about UnTrap is I can still search for whatever I want on YouTube, but I get to stay in control. I get to show up for a particular reason and actually remember what that reason was. And apparently I'm not the only one getting tired of throwing my brain into the scrambler. The writer and anti-tech activist August Lamb recently made a bold prediction on X. I'm calling it right now. Abstention is the next big thing. Sobriety, celibacy, digital minimalism, dumb phones, religion. The age of hedonistic hyperconsumption is over. We're moving into a new and peaceful age marked by moderation and self-discipline. I can't wait. But here's a chance for you to wait a minute and have a conversation. Do you think Lamb's prediction is coming true? Why or why not? In some ways, I think Lamb is right. But one thing I think she might be missing is the fact that when it comes to technology, just trying to increase our willpower to log off earlier is only gonna get us so far when we're up against the most addictive technologies ever created. In Homer's classic story, not that Homer, the Odyssey, the main character Odysseus sails past an island of sirens. Not those sirens, creatures part woman, part bird, who sang enchanting songs to lure sailors to their deaths. It was believed that no one could hear their song and not be seduced by it. So when Odysseus sailed past, he had his crew tie him to the ship's mast so that no matter how much he wanted to pursue the temptation, he couldn't do it. And afterward, he thanked the crew and, got to keep living. Now, it's not a perfect comparison because Odysseus also purposefully exposed himself to the temptation. My main point is just that sometimes voluntarily embracing restrictions can help us not do what we've already decided we don't want to do. As Dr. Sherry Turkle, founding director of the MIT Initiative on Technology and Self, put it in her book, Reclaiming Conversation, if we feel addicted to our phones, it is not a personal weakness. We are exhibiting a predictable response to a perfectly executed design. Looking at things through this lens might put us halfway to making new choices, needed changes. Now, UnTrap is available for most web browsers, but earlier I mentioned using Safari, which maybe made some of you cringe. I get it. The reason I decided to commit to Safari instead of Chrome or some other browser is because I actually wanted to use Apple's screen time feature as well and be able to customize it down to specific time amounts for specific websites. At least at the time of this recording, if you try to use screen time on other browsers, all it lets you do is disable the entire thing after a certain amount of time. It's all or nothing. And yeah, screen time isn't perfect. Sometimes it fails, sometimes there are glitches, and unless you give someone else the password, the whole thing is an absolute joke. But I am on the slow journey of understanding this. Purposefully embracing limitations actually enables me to live a better life. For me, screen time and UnTrap are both tools to help me reclaim time and space so I can more intentionally pursue the things that I already know are life-giving for me. Here's another question you might pause the video to discuss. In what ways would you say that limitations have helped you live a better life? In our modern world, I think we've convinced ourselves that putting fewer limitations on ourselves will make us happier, but I'm not convinced that's true. And as a Christian, I believe that God himself purposefully embraced limitations when he became human. He went from being omnipresent to just being present. Jesus went from being able to see everything everywhere to just walking around in the foothills of Galilee. And not to spoil the ending, but good things happen because of it. The invitation of Jesus is to follow his example. So when it comes to the way he purposefully embraced limitations, what might it look like for us to follow in his footsteps? Thanks for watching. I'm supposed to ask you to subscribe and recommend other videos here, but if I were you, I would get out while you still can. Still here?